What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with the GC Cup preview for the RBC Canadian. But before we look at that, let's look back at last week's Memorial Tournament. And we are on a little bit of a run here. It's amazing how little it takes to get you excited when you've been on a bad run. It's like real golf when you play horrible for 17 and a half holes and then you chip in on 18 and it keeps you coming back. Kind of the same thing here where we had such a brutal stretch that we had a high finish last week, we cashed again this week, and now we're feeling good, we're feeling the momentum, and we are just ready to rock and roll here in segment 3. So a 36th place finish last week with 407.5 points. Our lineup, this is actually a pretty, the way it ended up shaking out in terms of ownership, this is not a usual lineup that I would end up getting to because we had 3 really highly owned golfers and 3 pretty low owned golfers. I normally kind of stay in that, or at least would attempt to stay maybe 6 guys, that 10 to 15, that 10 to 20, especially in some type of small field like we get where there's only 137 entries into this each week, or 144 at max, I think. I think we've already had a handful of guys give it up for the year. But this is kind of unusual for me. So we'll go, most owned to low owned. We had Adam Scott at 35%. He finishes in second place. Henrik Stenson at 24%. He finishes in a T37 slot. Tony Finau, 21%, was our big loser, missing the cut, and took 21% of him. 21% of owners with him. And then we had Xander, 9.5%. He ends up going T14. Billy Horschel, who made a charge on the weekend at 6.6% to finish T9. Great to get him into the top 10. And then KJ Choi, who we tried to be really, really smart on, $6,100, less than 1% owned. Actually, that might mean 0.7%. That I might have been the only guy who had him. 1 out of 137. That might just be me. So he ends up making the cut, which is what we asked for, right? I said, hey, just make the cut, KJ, and we're going to be thrilled. Kind of took that to heart because he was 1 under after 2 rounds and then went 10 over on the weekend. So didn't do much, but did make the cut, which is just fine for a guy who's basically the min price. So looking back at this lineup, there's a few things to say here. It's incredible how often this happens, but Xander Schauffele finishes T14 and outscores Billy Horschel pretty significantly, who finished T9. Outscores him by 9 DraftKings points because of all the birdies he made. I think he had a birdie streak. He had a bogey-free round. Billy Horschel did not have a birdie streak, did not have a bogey-free round. It's really incredible how often that seems to happen, where it's all about birdie makers, people. I know you want the guys that finish highly in the tournament, but the difference between 9th and 8th place is what? 1 point. It's just much better off to keep rostering all these big birdie makers, which is what we tried to do with Tony Finau. And even in missing the cut, he had an eagle, 2 birdies, scored 21.5 points. We've seen guys miss the cut and shoot 7 over in much worse DraftKings scores. And then really the key for this lineup was missing a lot of the carnage, right? There was some carnage at the top. 6 of 6s were hard to find. 5 of 6s were hard to find. If we go up and look at the winner, SC Game 07, he did nail a 6 of 6 lineup, but did not have the winner, did not have Patrick Cantlay. He ended up with Adam Scott, popular pick, finishing in second. He had 2 guys finish in the top 10, Horschel and Griot. He had Justin Rose at 3%. He got a 3% stud. Very impressive there. Ended up finishing in 13th, but scored a lot of DraftKings points along the way. Rory Sabatini, Juice Luton, and that's everybody. That's all 6 guys. Emiliano Griot. Maybe I didn't talk about him. So just getting 6 of 6 through was so critical. I want to quickly see, did the guy in second? Yeah, even second place only had 5 of 6. Third place had 5 of 6, but had Cantlay. Fourth place had 5 of 6. So, really that the key there, and he won by 20 points because he got all 6 of 6 through. So avoiding that carnage was super important last week, excuse me. And that pushes us to 64th 64th on the season-long standings, 36th in segment 3. So that was the only tournament, the first tournament in segment 3. We're going to turn our attention to the RBC. We're going to turn our attention to the US Open. There's going to be a lot of points up for grabs in the next handful of weeks. We started off well for this segment, and we are, well within the cut line for the to reach the playoffs here. I would love to just get a win before then. Get a win, give us a chance come playoff time that if we win another one, we can take this whole thing down, but we are feeling the momentum. So for the RBC this week, where are we going to go? Here's the lineup. It's Sergio, Bubba, Bud Cauley, Eric Van Rooyen, EVR, JB Holmes, and Corey Connors. And a lot of the thought process is in the DFS video, but when it came to actually constructing this, I thought there were, as with most weeks, there's really two ways to play it. It's either a balanced lineup or it's a stars and scrubs approach. I opt to go for a balanced lineup because the stars and scrubs approach in a field where the studs drop off so quickly. So there's like 5 studs, and then I think it gets really bad after that. I didn't necessarily feel that you could have constructed a really good lineup. You would have had to take some guys that at the bottom of that I was not comfortable with. So the bottom end of our range here is Corey Connors and JB Holmes and EVR. All of those guys are $7,800 or cheaper. And what you're finding there is tee to green guys. Corey Connors, excellent tee to green in any field, cannot putt. Okay. Canadian, maybe he's a little bit more familiar with Hamilton, or maybe this is just the week that he finds a hot putter, right? I mean, his tee to green game is always very strong. JB Holmes, kind of similar. JB Holmes, playing better than you would expect recently, but putting worse than normal. I'm thinking that his putting comes back eventually. If this is the week, we have seen bombers be very beneficial here. So I'm going to fire up JB Holmes, who in this field is probably much better or has a much better resume kind of long-term than the rest of the guys in that price range. EVR. We have a very, very small sample size of him playing shot link events. So that's where we get the strokes gained data from. I think I only have 8 measured rounds for him this year, something like that. But in those 8 measured rounds, he's been really, really good. He's been great on the Euro Tour. It's one of these situations where he doesn't necessarily close. He doesn't win a lot on the European Tour. I don't think I would bet him to win outright. But if he can just, hang around at the top of the leaderboard, top 15, top 20, cool. EVR is our guy. And then you start getting into the higher tier players. And when we start talking about Bud Cauley as a high tier player, this field drops off very quickly. So he's $8,400, and we played him last week. He played great. I had a top 5 bet on him, which was looking good for a while. I think he ended up dropping out, finishing like T9 or something like that. But Bud Cauley played great, has been playing well, and the last time that the RBC Canadian was played at Hamilton, Bud Cauley finished 4th. Sergio Garcia, I'm going to jump up. Sergio Garcia, $9,500. He's going to be really popular, I think. Seems to be a lot of people on him. I think the last time we saw him was that missed cut at the PGA, but great ball striker, great tee to green. I don't know. Just seems really, really popular. I had no problem plugging him in. Seems fine by me. But the guy that I'm assuming I might be a little bit contrarian on is not Bud Cauley, Bubba Watson here. So this was the last slot where I was going back and forth between Stenson and Bubba. Stenson would have been the safer, more popular play, I believe. Watson to be the more volatile leverage play. And what I did with, the limited research that we had about Hamilton, what it kind of indicated was being long really helped. Additionally, being able to shape shots really helped. When you look at those two factors, like the literal one name that comes to mind when you talk about both of those things is Bubba Watson. And he is in a really bad putting spot right now because of the PGA. He lost like 6 strokes putting combined in 2 rounds at the PGA Championship. I do not think that's going to happen again. I'm looking for, again, a bounce back week. These are going to be really slow greens. You're going to have to make a lot of birdies. Maybe Bubba can fill it up. We've seen him get hot at times, like at the match play, for example. So I'm really interested to see how he pans out because he kept showing up on a lot of my models and metrics, and really everything that I looked at, Bubba's name came up here, and I almost chickened out and played Stenson. But I'm going with Bubba. And I put the Stenson lineup in, the $5, $150,000 to first, just in case that ends up being the nut lineup. I didn't want to miss out on it, but I really struggled to decide between Bubba and Stenson. And I said, you know what? Let's try to find a little bit of a leverage play and see what Bubba ends up being. There you go. Let me know what you think. If it was between Stenson and Bubba for you, who would you have played? I'm going with Bubba, but I could be wrong, and I guess we'll find out shortly here. Best of luck, and I'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.